All right.
Hi, everybody. So this is the last session for Google Camp. My name is Eliana Mendoza. I'm going to be your moderator. If you have any questions or things like that about the Zoom interface or the chat, you can find me on the chat. Again, Eliana Mendoza. If you guys want to connect with social media, hashtag IE Google Camp on Instagram and Twitter. And again, for the help desk, we also have a help option on the Sked app. It's at the top of the page. And you can also private message me. And the title of this session is Discover the Wonders of Wonderopolis. And our presenter is Lerticia Citizen from Beverly Hills School District. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to her.
Get, if you go to the website, there's a help link, and they have a bunch of
like when I share my screen, everything like moves. So I'm going to use Wakelet to go through this presentation. I have put the link to this exact Wakelet, and as we move through to talk about and discover the wonder of Wonderopolis. So welcome. There is a form that I'm asking you. So these links are all clickable. So if you could go ahead and complete first the Google form that's here. And then the second part is a Nearpod that student pays that you'll put your name. And then it asks you to draw a place that inspires your curiosity. So I'm going to go ahead and let you do that as more people start to come in. Good afternoon for those of you that are just joining us. I have put the link to what's ultimately like a session deck. But as you're there, you'll notice it just has like a blurb about what the session's about. But if you could go ahead and complete this Google form, and then you're going to go ahead and draw a place on this Nearpod that inspires your curiosity. For those of you that are just joining us, I've put the link in our chat. And the first two items that I'm asking you to do is to go ahead and complete this Google form, and then to go ahead and draw a place that inspires you on this Nearpod. So you go ahead and you can click on these, they'll take you to those items. And if at any time you have any questions, you can always just go ahead and place them in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it, and so is Ileana. This isn't listed on your form. You know what? That market for, let me see. Do the using wonder to inspire young poets. I need to change it. That's the one that I used to do, but now I've kind of changed it. So use that presentation, and I'll be able to go in on my spreadsheet and change it. Thank you, Crystal, for pointing that out. Right, and so for those of you, let's see, I know he's connecting to audio. Jesus, you just joined us. I am putting the link to this presentation for you to access if you would like to join in. There is some interaction that's going to go on. But go ahead and fill out this form and then draw your place of curiosity on this Nearpod. You're welcome. And again, if at any time you have any questions, please by all means go ahead and place it in the chat. And I can't do it. What can't you do, Ada? I hope that I pronounced your name correctly.
I can't get there to draw the picture.
You can't draw the picture? Is
I,
it?
I can't get it in. Everything que participates in the chat box.
Oh, okay. No problem. So you just mean,
Yeah.
okay. I understand now. Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry.
What class do you want us to check? Yes, thank you for that question again. So when you're marking here, go ahead and mark the one that says using wonder to inspire young poets. I changed the session title because I've like changed up the whole session altogether. I didn't catch who just joined.
I'm gonna type it in the chat.
Okay. Thank you for doing that, Ilyana. For those of you just joining, I did put the link to the presentation there, and then it's asking you to do two things. The first one is to complete the Google form, and then to draw a place that inspires your curiosity. What's the code for Nearpod? When you click on the Nearpod, it's actually going to take you inside. It's set to student pace. All right, and those of you that just joined, if you could go, I just placed the link to the presentation in the chat. You could go ahead and click that, to then it will take you to this Wakelet. And if you scroll a little bit, the first two things it does ask you is to complete this Google form, and then to draw a place that inspires your curiosity. Oh, cool. I was taking a look at some of your images that that you either drew or uploaded. Nearpod wants a name. What do we put in? You just put your name. Just the first line for your name. All right, so as you continue to fill that out, I'm just gonna go ahead and go forward on this Wakelet presentation. So just to point out, I am using Wakelet. If you're not familiar with Wakelet, it is a curation tool that allows, Wonderopolis is not an option. Yes, on the form, because I changed the title, you're actually gonna select using wonder to inspire young poets. So Wakelet is a curation tool that allows you to add links, add text, bring in YouTube videos, which is really cool because when you bring in the YouTube videos, they don't have any ads on them. There is a collaboration tool, which is really cool for students who are 13 and under, or under 13, I should say, because Wakelet is for people who are 13 and over to have an account. How do I get to the form for the Wakelet? How do I get to the form for the Wakelet? If you scroll, once you get to the Wakelet, you're gonna scroll down. I think that's what you're asking. And then the form is here. You can click on it. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Lerticia Citizen. I am an I-4 coach in Beverly Hills Unified School District. This will be my third year in that role, and our 4 I's that we focus on are innovation, instruction, individualization, and innovation. But I'm starting my 21st year of teaching. I've taught 2 years kindergarten, 7 years first grade, and then 9 years in 5th grade. I taught in Pasadena Unified School District for 16 years, taught in Arcadia Unified for 2, and then when I was presenting at ISTE in Chicago 3 years ago, I was presenting at the Bunty booth, and a coach from Beverly Hills Unified was there and knew that I was looking for a new job, and they offered me to come in and interview, and then I got the job. I do not live in Beverly Hills. Let me just put that out there. I do commute all the way from Covina. So you can imagine the drive to work and back. I also have like my digital portfolio card here, or my digital card, where you can see that I have a lot of badges that I'm part of in terms of being an ambassador for many edtech companies, because they really are about like engaging students, amplifying their voice and giving them choice in things. And then the other thing that I love about these platforms is that I can actually like reach out to someone and not have to wait a long time to get a response back. And they really truly listen to feedback from students as well as educators. So today we're gonna talk about like how to use, is there any website I can use for my 3 to 5-year-olds? Are you talking about Wakelet or are you talking about Wonderopolis, Ada? If you can clarify for me. But to start off creating this whole idea of using wonder in the classroom, I always stress, oh, go ahead, Ada.
Either one, I'm not familiar with neither. So which one is better for the 3 to 5 years old?
So as we go through, we're gonna have time to look at Wonderopolis, and you'll find, you'll be able to make that determination for yourself.
Okay.
Okay, no
yes.
problem.
Thank you.
So I always like to stress that in my class, when I was in the classroom, and now what I'm helping teachers to do is like really create an environment of curiosity. And so the first thing that, that entails is setting the stage for wondering and exploration. Share what you notice and wonder. So if you could go ahead, if you are on this Wakelet, if you could go ahead and click on the Padlet, it will take you to a space where you'll see this image, and it says, "You are the storyteller of wonder." And I start this off on the first day of school with my students. I just posted, and even now thinking about remote learning and working with my teachers, how you can use platforms such as Padlet or even Jamboard or whatever works for you to get students to engage in real time and share their voice and share what their thoughts are, that like, to go ahead and like share this with them, and then just ask them to share what they notice and they wonder. When I was in the classroom in 3D, then I used to post this somewhere in our classroom for an entire week, and students just had Post-its, and at any point they could just go up and add new ideas, add new notices, add new wonders. In that time, like if there were questions that were there, students would do their own like individual research and then go back and like add a Post-it and like put an answer that they have with evidence. But they were just truly engaging and exploring what this image is. And so just saying, what do you notice and what do you wonder? And so you'll see that others have also shared, like they noticed the ship. They notice that there's a large moon. They notice that it says brains on fire. They even have questions about it. I wonder where this is happening and where and when is the ship going? So just allowing them time to fully share and start this off with this whole idea of setting the tone, so that way you can have this curious environment and allowing students to be okay with asking questions without like reprimand or getting into trouble. And then on top of that, something else that I'm also going to do in conjunction with that primary source is that I'm going to read, just about, it probably comes out to at least once a week, where I'm reading picture books that are truly about wonder and curiosity. And so these are just, like 7 books that I'm sharing here, but I have a whole collection of books where I'm just reading and taking time with them and letting them fully engage with the text. And, with 5th graders, we would sit on the carpet and I would read to them, and, we would really take time to explore like the cover, do those basic ideas of setting up, like reading the story, but like exploring the cover, exploring the back cover. And then as we go through and read, they've got Post-its and they've got their journals, and they're just jotting down ideas and new wonders or new notices, and they're just keeping track of this. But again, it's all about inspiring them to be curious and to be okay with asking questions. I don't know, for those of you like where you are in your teaching career in terms of like what grade levels you deal with, but in my experience with my 5th graders, by the time they got to me, they didn't want to have to do any work, in the sense that like they just wanted me to tell them everything. They would come to me with questions and I'm like, go look it up, or let's plan on how we're going to explore this. But even so, getting them just to ask questions, that's why I said like that image I would leave up for an entire week, because in the beginning they're not doing a lot of asking, but as we move on, they start to add to it, and now they're starting to see like, oh, okay, I can ask these questions. And the other thing of really helping my students understand that like the questions that you ask are about your truth, because those are the cards that you have in your hand at that time. But as you start to gain new information and start to explore more, then you're going to start to shift what those questions that you're asking, what that looks like, and just really, like I said, for me with my 5th graders, I mean, we're hitting this hard, and we're hitting this on day 1, because they're not in that stage anymore of asking questions. They just want to be told. And so having that conversation of like, when did that shift? And really asking them to reflect on like, when did you stop asking questions? Because there was a time where you were, and at some point, either someone or something happened that then told you to stop. And now you just sit back and you're waiting to be spoon-fed, and that's not part of learning. Or that's not the learning that we want to do. All right, so here's Wonder Station number 1. And again, I encourage you to go ahead. Thank you for putting those. Yes, you can add video into Padlet. That's a good question. And thank you for offering that, that book choice in there, Natalie. So our first station we're going to look up is setting up your Wonder Jam board. So in the classroom, I would do this on, take a bulletin board, and it was our Wonder board. And you can see here, students are taking a selfie, and then we would print that out, and they would cut out their image and they would put it on the board, and then they would take a thought bubble and put it above them with just paper, and they would cut it out. And then we were using Post-its, so that way it was an interactive board, and they were always adding and taking off, but always like putting questions that they have. And again, it was called our Wonder board. But now thinking, all right, if we're remote learning, how do we do this now virtually? And so I came up with this idea of like, students can go ahead using a camera either on their phone or on their device, whatever that is, and then teaching them to use remove.bg, which removes the background, okay? And then you can go ahead and try this, because I've made it all so that way you all can play around with it. But then they're gonna visit our classroom Jamboard, which is down here. And with students, you can either, number your students, so that way 2 students are using 1 board. So in this space would be someone else. And then they would just take that space, right? They would add their image. So again, because I use remove.bg, I was able to like remove that background, upload the image, and now I can just go ahead and add Post-its with questions that I have, right? What is in the center of a teapot? I don't know. And so then I'm going to just add my Post-it here. So that way this becomes my own virtual Wonder Wednesday board, right? And then I can also go through and see what other students are sharing. And so it's a space where we can all access. This is a good time to also stress to your students and demonstrate digital citizenship, so that way you can have that conversation of not deleting someone else's post or deleting anything that they placed there. One thing about Jamboard, it does not give you the history. So if someone does do something accidentally, like you can't go and undo it or replace it or see who did it. But again, this is just one way that you can go ahead and have that interactive Wonder Wednesday, because you're going to be using this all year long. Okay, so that's there for you to go ahead and engage with. And so it's just very simple. Again, you're doing this first week of school, setting this up. You can do it. I always do it on Wednesdays because it was easy to do Wonder Wednesdays. But there's that for you. Any questions about that? Let me just check in real quick. Sorry. Any questions about this? And I've set it so that way anyone can join on and edit. I made, just to clear this up, I made this background on Buncee and then just uploaded it as an image. And then I was able to duplicate it. So if you click here, then I could go ahead and say duplicate, and then I could move it. So you can move these around if you wanted to. What grade level will benefit the most from this learning platform? Are you talking specifically about Jamboard, or are you talking about Wonderopolis? Robin, if you could clarify. Wonderopolis. I'm going to say that I know of kindergarten teachers that actually use it. And so here's where you'll get to explore it. So you could go ahead and click on Wonderopolis. And I would say go ahead and explore with it. The thing that really helps with our littles using this is, so if you, let's say you wanted to check out this wonder, can you draw with thread? You can go ahead and click on it. And you'll see right here under each wonder, there's this little icon that says listen. This is the Immersive Reader. And this is where it would help with our littles and even with our students who are still increasing their reading skills, right? So the Immersive Reader automatically pops up. It's free. And you'll see down here that students can actually go ahead and
Can you draw
play,
with thread?
and it
Have
will
you
read
ever
to them.
wondered?
You can also, to the right of it, there's a little voice settings that you can click. You can change it so that way there's a female or male voice. You can change the speed. So the turtle is slower, the rabbit is faster. And so then the other things that you can also help with this is if you click on the letter, there's a text preference. So you can go ahead and change the text size. You can increase the spacing or not. You have 3 options for font. Is Immersive Reader an extension for Google? No, it's not an extension yet for Google, but it's automatically on Wonderopolis. So you can change between these 3 fonts. You can also change the theme in terms of how it looks. And again, this is for each individual student that they can control how they want this to look. And so that way they can get the best information, right? It's a great accessibility tool. So I can break it down so that way I can see the syllables in every word. Maybe we're working on nouns and it'll highlight all the nouns. I can even change the color that I want that to be. I can highlight verbs. And then if I go to the book option, I can change it so that way it focuses on one line at a time or several lines. There's a picture dictionary, so that way there are some words that are highlighted. So for draw, it shows me some pictures of what that means. And then there's the language as well. I forgot how many languages are here for students to access, but they can also change it to a different language. And so again, when they're ready to go.
Draw with thread? What technique?
Someone asked, can the teacher do this for them, or is this is done by each individual student? Yeah, so anyone who comes here to Wonderopolis can click on that option and they can control it. Yep. So I wanted to give you time, if you go back to station 2, I wanted to give you time to go ahead, explore Wonderopolis. I'm gonna give you some time to do that. Explore the site, click on links, search for topics, read the information. And then I've shared a collaborative Wakelet for you to just come back here and, or you can do it in the chat if you prefer, but just all you have to do is click on edit collection. And I just want you to share maybe 3 things that you observe, 2 wonderings, maybe one topic that you want to explore. And to do that, you're going to click this green button and then you're going to go to add text and then you can start typing. So I'll give us like 3 minutes to do that. And if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourselves. We'll definitely take time to like play around with it. And for anyone who came in late, I know I saw a couple of people come in. There's the link to this Wakelet so you can access everything. Oh, sorry about that, Christine. And then Christine, if you're not familiar with Wakelet, you're just gonna, it starts off at the top. You're just gonna scroll down. And we are actually at Wonder Station number 2. You're welcome. So we have about 2 more minutes. We have 1 more minute. Next, we're the Wakelet and the Wonderopolis after the training. Yes, Ada, like the link that I gave you, and I can send it to you. I think you said you weren't able to participate. If you put your email in the chat, then I can send it to you. Yes.
Send my email?
Yeah, put your email in the chat, and then that way I'll make sure that I send the link for you, so that way you can access this and play around with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can everyone see each other's responses in email, or is it only intended for the teacher to see? Catherine, what are you responding to specifically? Each of the responses in Wakelet. Yeah, so the collaborative board where you're sharing like the things that like you're finding, that you're exploring, and your curiosities. When you finish, then you have to go up and click done. You'll be able to see everyone else's. The nice thing about the collaborative part of Wakelet is that no one else can edit your response. So while they can see it, they can't do anything to it. They can move it up and down, but yes, they can read it, but they can't like edit or do anything. And that's only because I set it up to collaborative. I only see my own when I press done. there are two other people who are starting to respond now. So maybe refresh. Yeah, 'cause you're supposed to be able to see. Got it, I had to refresh. Okay, good. You had me panicking. I was like, wait a minute. It's supposed to be set up this way. Okay, so thank you for sharing. I liked reading your observations, and but mine isn't saving. So Amanda, I will say that like with internet connectivity sometimes, because last night when I was like putting this together, there were a couple of times where I had to like step away and then come back. And I mean, it was like maybe 2 minutes, but then I like closed my browser and then came back on and then it was working. And there's like no rhyme or reason. Just when that happens, I do reach out to Wakely and just say like, hey guys, just want to let you know this happened again. But a lot of times it just has to do with the internet. I'm really sorry. So sorry. All right, so we're gonna move down to station 3. And this, I wanted to highlight Wonder Wednesday. So earlier I showed you how getting students to set up like the Wonder Wall for Wonder Wednesday. And again, I just kind of went with Wednesday because it was the middle of the week and it was a nice alliteration, Wonder Wednesday. And so in my classroom, I did this every Wednesday. We would have our Wonder time. It's a nice way too if you do what do we call those passion projects or those 20% time projects. It was nice to connect that with that time as well, because then it allows students to just explore more, go deeper into what they were doing, but then also like have some time to look at some other possibilities and some other wonders that they had going on. But in this station, again, you would just instruct students to go to Wonderopolis, click on Wonders, and then using the questions that that you posted on your Jamboard. So if you did come here, I hate that little thing. You did come here and you had questions on your board, right? So I would take one of those. So I would take why is the grass green? And then go back to Wonderopolis and I will type in my question and see what populates. So it's gonna take like either if that exact question is there, which, you know, you're lucky if you got that, then, you know, that wonder would pop up with it. Also wonders that were kind of in that same topic would also populate. Or if that exact question is not there, again, it will pull out specific words like maybe green and grass, that then it's gonna populate wonders that have to do with that on the website. So, and then the other thing is if the question that you had was just not coming up with any possibilities at all, but they just had like some suggestive ones, and I would say to them, okay, you can always like change your question, go back to your board and pick a new question, but still leave that one there, or try one of the suggestive ones. But then the other part of that was Wonderopolis on their page has a section where you can actually type in a question, so that way you can suggest to them to maybe that will become a wonder one day. I don't think I say this in the beginning, but Wonderopolis is free. Just wanted to point that out. You don't need accounts. Your students don't need accounts. The other cool thing about Wonderopolis is they're really about like students and promoting reading, that once they hit 2,000 wonders, every wonder that they've done after that was suggested by students and by teachers. So every wonder after 2000, I don't even know what wonder they're on right now, has come from students and teachers suggesting them and saying, hey, we need this question answered. So students would then go there, find their question, read the wonder, read the article, and then they would have to complete their Wonder Wednesday assignment. And I've tagged here they would either do this on a Padlet, sometimes they would do this on Seesaw. So I've kind of linked that here so you can see. So if you click the Wonder Wednesday, what do you wonder? This is actually a Padlet that I set up for one of my teachers when we went on remote learning, because we were thinking, okay, how do we do this now here? So we went with Padlet, and you'll see that every week, So the first week, because she was testing this out with her students, she told them which wonder she wanted them to read. And then going forward, they got to choose whatever they want, the wonder that they wanted. But they had very specific ways that she told them you had to include your name, the wonder number, the wonder title, a detailed response. She told them to do all 3 questions. I used to just tell my students to choose one. So that's what we did when we first tried it out. And then also having my students practice the ACE method, because I really wanted them to practice not only to answering questions, but then practicing providing evidence for that. So they really had to learn how to like use the evidence that was in that wonder to then support the answer that you're giving to that question. And so you can see here that that students were going ahead and they were doing that and they were responding, and it was really about like using their own words, but then using evidence to support it. And then the other part of that is that then they had to respond to at least 3 of their classmates and just give them feedback. Now, because she was just trying this out with her students, she just, you know, go ahead and give them feedback, give them some kind words. Whereas in my classroom, I really had students to practice purposeful feedback, which meant that they always had to start off with a compliment. And that meant that they had to be very specific about their compliment. They just couldn't say it was cool. They had to say what was cool about it. And then they would make a connection. So make your personal connection to what you just read. And then the last part was that they had to ask a question. And it was important that they ended with a question, because now we're going to promote that dialogue between the 2 students, right? And I had to stress to them, you have to ask a question that was triggered off of what you just read. It can't be if they told you that the sky is blue, you're not going to say, hey, what color is the sky? Because they just told you in their words, right? So it was really about like, they had that structure, and then students had time later during the week to go back and then respond to the feedback that they received from their classmates. So that's one way to do it. It was on Padlet. And then the other way for Wonder Wednesday was if you use Seesaw, and I was using Seesaw with my 5th graders, and then also my teachers currently at our school. I just put the link to the presentation, Christy, in the chat. So with my 5th graders, I use Seesaw, but also my teachers at school, K through 2, use Seesaw. Excuse me, and then 3-5 use Google Classroom. But this was an activity that I created with my students where the directions were here. They actually were recording themselves and sharing, answering that question and still using the ACE method. So it was just one more way for students to go ahead and share what they were learning from their wonders that they were reading on Wednesday. All right. So then let me check in. Any other questions? All right, we're moving along. So then we have Wonder Station number 4, and this was about wonder poems. And so with wonder poems, again, it directs students to go ahead and click on the Wonderopolis link below. Again, you're going to explore wonders. You're going to find a wonder topic that interests you by searching through the ones listed, or type in your own question. Again, they can either go to their board where they've been adding questions on Wednesdays or whenever they want to, or they're just, then there's sometimes too, I wanted to point out that like on Wonder Wednesday, there were times where I picked the topic, and I usually picked topics that had to do with what we were doing in the classroom. Okay, so it's a nice way to tie that in as well. So sometimes I chose it and sometimes I let them. And we have that understanding that I'm part of the class as well. And so there's times where their choice is going to be my choice. And even with that, sometimes if our topic was fire, then I would say, go ahead and type in fire. And you know, they would get like this curated list of different articles that had to do with fire. And then I would say, okay, out of those articles, then choose the one that sticks out to you. So there were times where I would say, go ahead and choose the one that you want. Other times I would say, here's the one I want you to do. Other times they may have done a comparative analysis between 2 or 3 of them. So you've got some variety with what's going on there on Wonderopolis. And so they would click the wonder, read the article, and then I would like to know if it's good for preschoolers to use and where. For preschoolers, if you want them to just listen, I will say, let me go there right now. like again, it will read it to them because of the immersive reader, or if one of your teachers want to go ahead and read it. Some of the wording sometimes can be a little high maybe, but then that would be like the extra time where like students could ask those questions, or you can explain that word to them. The other cool thing that I felt to point out, and I don't know if anyone caught it, but there are certain words that are underlined. If you hover over them, then it gives you the definition, which I don't know would help necessarily with your preschoolers, but again, I do know like of a kinder teacher who used it a lot. With preschool, I think you would, it's one more resource, right? It's not the end all be all, but it gives them some more information, and then you can have that further conversation. What is the general reading level? That's a good question. They've said they tried to stay in the like the 2nd through 5th grade range. Because again, like this website is sponsored free through NCFL, which is the National Center for Family Literacy. So they're really about like reaching our low income families and helping like with reading there. And this is why it was very important for them to put the immersive reader there to help with our students who are learning to read. And then also for our students who are learning English as a second language. So they try to keep it there, but then I know like with the kinder and 1st grade teacher that I know that does use it, like they have that conversation with kids and they're working with them in smaller groups. And I also wanted to point out there is a video that's always there with every article, and then there's always like 4 or 5 like primary sources images that are there as well for students to explore. I hope that helps answer that question. So for the poetry, students are going to read the article, and then they're going to access, there's a poem structure that you're going to share with students. And again, I would teach these in isolation first, each poem, and then it gets to a point where when we are doing Wonder Wednesdays, they could choose which poem they wanted to use to express what they learned. Okay, so we're alternating that during Wonder Wednesday, but I would say you could like share that on your Google, whatever platforms that you use to submit information to your students, you could place that there. You can even use Wakelet for it. But the whole idea is that students are gonna write out their poem, either on a Post-it or a paper or whatever that is. And then they're gonna go to Google Drawings and they're gonna draw an image that supports the poem that they have, type the poem on there, and then share it on a collaborative slide deck. So I did have an example here. So here's one where we did do one on fire. Again, I had them just to type in the topic, and then they got to choose which article they were, or which wonder they were going to read. And this one was a collaborative effort. So they worked with another partner. And this was when we were in 3D. So this is not virtually, but you can still do it virtually, but maybe individually. But students went on ahead, read the article, their title usually matched the wonder that they did. They wrote out their poem, and then they went to Google Drawings, drew their image, typed out their poem, and then shared it here on the slide deck. And it's in, and then what they do is they're able to give each other feedback by either using the comment option or typing in the presenter's notes. Okay. Any questions so far about any of this? Ada, we can talk about Flipgrid afterwards if you're really interested in how to use it. Okay.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, no problem. And then another time that we really, so I'm doing different poetry with my students all year long, but during April is when we do one once a month, because it's NaPoWriMo month, where it's National Poetry Writing Month. And we're doing a wonder poem every day. But here's one where I created a Flipgrid where it has 7 different topics, and and it was just something that I was like started to generate from my teachers to use so that way they could copy it and use it themselves. But all the directions were there, and then students were going to go ahead and create it and then share it on Flipgrid. So this is just one more way that you can engage students with that. If anyone uses Buncee, I created a Buncee deck that also talks about crafting curiosity into wonder poems, where they're doing the same thing, but they're just doing it on Buncee. These are some other ways to then share those decks, because I'm really about like students not only creating, but having a space to share and get feedback from an authentic audience. And so I've also done this with teachers where they've got to share their wonder poems. Here's another deck that from Buncee that students created together, and then also using Padlet again to share their poems and then solicit feedback. Oh man, we got like 4 minutes. Okay, so Wonder Station 5 is about the Wonder blog. You can have at that and read that. This also goes with earlier where I showed you a Padlet where the teacher for this past remote learning experience set it up so that way students were responding to ACE. But I set up a blog there on my classroom blog, or my classroom website, and I also did it for our school website, where students could go and respond to a wonder that we put there for them. So be sure to check that out. Then you've got Wonder Station 6, where it's really allowing inquiry stations and choice boards. The choice boards, I believe, would be more helpful now in remote learning, whereas the inquiry stations, I mean, you can still do some virtual ones, but when you're doing it in 3D, you've got these different stations that are connected to what you're learning in class through different topics. And I would say do no more than 3 or 4 or inquiry stations at a time. There's a link here for you to explore. It's a blog from a friend of mine and how he did this at his school with one of his, I believe she was 5th grade. Lori was 5th grade at the time. I've also connected the 12 days. So Newsela did this thing called the 12 Days of Newsela 2 years ago. And then I created like a hyperdoc kind of activity for students where I took those Newsela articles that they were highlighting, those 12 days, I coupled them with a Wonderopolis article. And then if you take a look at it, not only are students like consuming the information, but then they're also creating by showing what they learned. So that's happening in every box. And this, we did, 12 days in December together, that idea. So that's there for you to access. There's extra resources there. I also did this if you want to do like parent involvement. I did this during open house where parents got to read the students' wonder poems, and then they got to go to Wonderopolis, check out Wonderopolis, choose a wonder, and then they actually shared on a slide deck. Our theme for my open house was Hamilton, and so parents got to choose a slide and then type out what wonder they read and some information that they learned. So it was just one more way for parents to see what we were doing in the classroom and getting them to connect with it. There's a link here for the Wonder Ground, which is a space for teachers, and teachers, you do have to sign up. It's for free, but you get access to other teachers who have shared lessons there on how they've used Wonderopolis in their classroom. Yeah, so if you just access this link, Amanda, then you can always go back and access it. It's not like downloadable. You just go there and it's already housed on the web. Flipgrid has a partnership with Wonderopolis where they've got like over 100 activities in the disco playlist that you can access. And then there's a Camp Wonderopolis. So please go ahead and check it all out. My information, if you have questions for me, is here, but I'll put it in the chat. I'll give you my Twitter handle if you're on Twitter. I love reaching out there. And then also my email. I'll leave that in the chat if you have any questions, but you are more than welcome to access this and check it out. You're welcome, Christine. Any questions, you can type it in the chat or unmute yourselves. Any comments, anything? I know we're right at the 2 o'clock mark.
So if there's no any more questions, we'd like to end the session here. We want to thank everyone for joining us for Google Camp. It was our first virtual conference, and we hope you got something out of it. And please, if you could just fill out the feedback on the SCED app. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
You're all welcome. No problem, Ada. You're welcome. Amanda, I hope that that you did get some new things to use. And then I think it's Zoila. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You are welcome. How can I get books to read for preschoolers on this? Books like that are about wonder? I'm not sure I understand your question, Francesca. You can unmute yourself and we can talk.
And ready for me? When you are ready. I know
Well,
you speak.
Eliana, are you going to shut down this? Because I know this is the last one. Are you going to shut this down or?
Yeah, I'm supposed to shut it down.
Okay. Ada, I'll email you, then we can set up time to talk about Flipgrid. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for all your help. Wonderful. God bless you.
Yeah, God bless
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.